Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we are going to talk about the big Balance Dataslate changes. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Tyranids. If you are new, we cover 40k content. I'd like to do some other stuff, but 40k content here. Specifically, my love is the Tyranids, so that's what all of our stuff is focused around. We have got a new detachment, new Balance Dataslate changes, new point changes, and 2 new data sheets to cover today. There's going to be more of an overview. We will touch on all the details, but stay tuned in later weeks, so you better subscribe, as I will touch on all these in a more in-depth tactical review. I want to get some games in. I've got 3-4 games coming up here soon. One of them will be on Monday here using the new detachment, so stay tuned to that. Live stream game, so check us out live there. But I want to get some games under my belt with this new stuff before I give a true in-depth discussion about all of these things, so this could be more of an overview. With all that, I just want to thank all of you guys for liking and subscribing. All of you awesome members for allowing us to do what we do here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. It's a lot of fun, and I get to keep playing the Tyranids. You guys let me do that. So thank you guys, and now with all that, let's dive into today's video. So let's dive into the Balanced Dataslate first. There are a couple of important things in some overviews we have to touch on. So first off, the Hive Tyrant is going to be our first unit of subject here. The Hive Tyrant's CP shenanigans have been reined in. Previously, the Hive Tyrants and Guilliman were the only models in the game that allowed a CP generation in your battle round and your opponent's battle round. Effectively double of what a lot of units could do in the game. That has been reined in. It is no longer once per turn, it is now once per battle round. Unfortunate, Tyranids, many of the detachments are CP hungry, so it was really nice to have that flexibility and use the CP at will. I think that was really a strength of the Tyranids. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that now. We'll talk about it later, but the points did go down on our Tyrants too. Quite substantially to accommodate that. We've got some revamped units. So the Ravveners with their new Kill Team box, I'm pretty sure it's going to be announced for pre-order. On Sunday they're going to announce it, so then the following Saturday pre-orders will go out. A new data sheet for the basic Ravveners and hyper adapted Ravveners. Little shocked that they split these into 2 data sheets, which means, we'll talk about it later, but it means we can now bring 6 data sheets of Ravveners in an army, which I believe will be almost twice as many Ravveners as we used to. Of course, you have to own all of them. Still, great there. The Psychophage has seen a long requested revamp, requested by a lot of the community. I have vouched for some of these changes specifically, and some new changes that I was not expecting that bring new light to the Tyranids. So very cool to see that. Everyone should have a Psychophage. So you'll probably want to start using them more now outside of just Assimilation Swarm. There is a new detachment. We'll talk about this. Super exciting for the Tyranids. It really unlocks a whole new way of playing the bugs. It is the Subterranean Assault. It features the tunneling Ravveners, Trigons, and Molochs making tunnels. Harkens back to some older edition stuff. So that and then a few other point changes are the things we're going to talk about. So first off, the point changes we mentioned. Walking Hive Tyrants and Winged Hive Tyrants are down 30 points apiece. Because they only generate half the amount of CP as they used to, which is was effectively, probably you could look at it as an extra 4 CP a game compared to other units, because the Hive Tyrant was often dead after turn 4. Maybe not, but it often was. Still, they're still good. Absolutely, the free generation is powerful, or the discounted CP, however you want to look at it, is powerful, but it is now 30 points cheaper per model. So not bad there. 170 points for a Winged Hive Tyrant. It's pretty cool in a lot of cases. The Swarm Lord got a nice little bit of love and went down 20 points. He did not change. He just went down 20 points. He still generates you 1 CP every turn automatically. So a different way to look at it, and he still has Lord of Deceit. So a different way to look at the Tyrants there. Maybe you'll start seeing the Swarm Lord a bit more, and I think you might start seeing the Winged Hive Tyrant a little bit more as well. Screamer Killers, finally, got a 10-point decrease. They're now 135, which I think is a pretty good spot for them. They will see probably some more play. Again, at 145, they didn't have enough wounds. They weren't durable enough. They weren't fast enough to be worth that 145 points. If their data sheet made it into melee, great. But the trick was paying the 145 points for an 8-inch move model with no access to advance and charge. They just never got there. So 135 points, much nicer now. And Hiveguard, they went down 10 points for 3. So if you take a big block of 6, they're now 180 points, which is much more of an easy thing to stomach. Still probably not worth it in most cases, but it is nice to see them getting some love. I would have loved for them to adjust the data sheet of the Hiveguard. I think the shock cannons need to go to AP2, and I think the ballistic skill on the Impaler cannons need to go to 3+, because they already have the rule to make them 4-ups, so move it to 3+ so they can fire them directly if they want and be an effective weapon in that regard. So another thing coming for the Hiveguard. Well, I hope there's something else coming for the Hiveguard. Probably not, but I don't think the 10 points are going to matter. And the Psychophage did get a 15-point increase. You'll see the data sheet in a second, and I think it's worth it. 100% is worth it. It might even be too cheap in some people's minds, but we'll see how it shakes out if these things are spammed everywhere or they're just 1 or 2 included here and there. So let's talk more in depth about the CP changes for the Tyrants. Both Hive Tyrants, like I said, are now once per battle round, not once per turn. Puts them in line with all other of these generating things in 40k. Overall, I understand the change. Okay, I understand it. Puts everything in line with being the same. But I like that about the Hive Tyrants, is that was something that was unique. They were these otherworldly, psychic mastery strategy bugs, strategic bugs, and they generated CP more. Unfortunately, I don't think it was a point to where it was abused. Yes, it gave you basically a free offensive and defensive strat every battle round. Now you have to choose which one it'll be. It is unfortunate. You will probably take you a couple games to get used to I can't just pop that Overwatch for free. I have to actually think about if I need that CP for something later. Unfortunate. Really unfortunate, especially for my double Tyrant list I love so much. Now you could argue double Tyrant list is still effective because that list effectively got 50 points cheaper, so that's pretty cool, but your CP is not as much. So that's that. And speaking of the double Tyrants, you might see Swarmlord a bit more now. Now Swarmlord is technically cheaper than where the Walking Hive Tyrant used to be, and he's really good at 220 points. He still has that Lord of Deceit, which is a nasty, nasty ability that your specifically melee opponents struggle to deal with. The Walking Hive Tyrant will probably be best if you are still running, 2-3 Exocrines, maybe 2 Maliceptors, 2 Tyrannophage. If you're running the big gun bugs, you're going to want that Assault and Lethal bubble. It's way too good to turn down. But if you're not someone who is running Vanguard Onslaught and you're not running heavy gun bugs, the Swarmlord might become the option that you go to. Another reason why Swarmlord might be used a bit more is that the changes to Chapter Approved 2025-2026, the mission deck, the secondaries, is it's much more likely that you're going to be scoring both your secondaries every single turn. Probably not turn 1, probably not turn 5, depending on what they are, but they got rid of, or they made secondaries easier to achieve at smaller scores, essentially. So there's going to be a lot less dead secondaries, in my opinion, which means there's a lot less opportunity for that free strat to overlap with the Swarmlord strat. So again, might be not bad bringing Swarmlord. So that's the Hive Tyrant changes. Overall, my least favorite change, but I understand it. It'll take some adapting to get to. Let's talk about the Psychophage. Got that point bump. Was it worth it? In my opinion, yes. So he finally, his attack profile was changed to a flat 6 attacks. Thank God, none of this rolling for 2 attacks or maybe 7 attacks and never anything in between. Flat 6 profile, dependable. and he went up to AP2, which is even better when you talk about its new special rule. So now its move is 12. This thing is insanely fast for whatever reason. It gained the smoke keyword. I mean, it's got smoke coming out of it. It made sense. It is now the only Tyranid with the smoke keyword, so you can make this thing extremely durable. We have access to the smoke screen keyword or smoke screen strat, so you can give him cover, -1 to hit. He's got a 3-up save, and he's got 5-up feel no pain. This thing can sit in the open and probably take most firepower from the games, barring things like fire dragons that get all the insane rerolls and stuff. So very good for the Psychophage. He did lose his 6-up feel no pain aura, but it was replaced with a really cool rule, which is where it is whenever he shoots something with his flamer, that unit he shot until the end of the turn, all melee attacks that target that same unit, not just the Psychophage, but all Tyranid melee attacks that target that unit get an increased AP of 1. They were specific to say it doesn't stack, so you can't put 2 Psychophages flaming one thing and turn your Hormiguns into AP3, but all of our Tyranids in melee who have been complaining about we're only AP1 or we're only AP2, with the help of Psychophage, you now have AP2 Hormigons, you now have AP3 Norns, you now have AP3 Swarmlord, trying to think of some other ones, AP3 Warriors and Gene Stealers. So it really could turn our melee up another dial here. It's situational because the Psychophage has to get there, but with a 12-inch range flamer and a 12-inch range or a 12-inch movement, it's 24-inch threat range that this little thing can scud around and flame something. So really like to see that. How impactful it'll be is yet to be seen, but at the very least it makes the Psychophage a pretty formidable opponent on the battlefield for only 110 points. So now we have to talk about 2 new Tyranid data sheets. Technically one's a revamp and one's a new one, but the Ravveners have got a big change up with the announcement of their new kit. Now, at time recording this, new Ravveners have not been announced via the Kill Team box yet, though I suspect this Sunday the pre-order is going to be announced. The following Saturday the pre-order will happen, and by the end of June you will have the box, if you could pre-order it, in your hands. You're going to probably want to get these. We're not doing a deep dive on these units. We're going to do an overview for now. Again, I want to get a few games under my belt with these guys before I give a deep dive. But spoilers, these new Hyper Ravveners, pretty wicked. So let's talk about them. First off, again, these are 2 separate data sheets. They are 5-man models each, so you could, in theory, have 30 Ravveners running around the board. Let's start with the regular Ravveners first. Overall, they are fine. They did get their melee profile significantly changed up. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this, but maybe that's a later discussion. They are now 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP2, 2 damage, twin linked. While that AP2, 2 damage is nice, I really sort of wish this kind of profile were on melee warriors, and the Ravveners kept their 7 AP1 1 damage attacks. But we'll see how it goes. They're still good punches, but they're going to suffer into reduced damage by 1 kind of significantly. So we'll see. They still have their pop down into reserves and pop back up sort of thing. They are 125 points for 5 models. They have rolled in that 4-up save. They have 3 wounds, OC1, T5, and a nice 10-inch move. All in all, fine. 125 points means they are the exact same price per model as they were before, but now they have a bigger footprint and a higher point cost, so they're not going to be as useful as little pop up and down action monkeys. In my opinion, looking at it that way, the Ravveners took a little bit of a nerf. Let's talk about the hyper-adapted Ravveners. These guys are bonkers compared to the regular ones. Lots of things to mention here. First off, they are 165 points, so you're paying an extra 10 points a model. No, not 10 points a model. Not quite 10 points a model. You're paying an extra 40 points for 8 points a model for these Super Ravveners. Couple things you get with this. One, character with them. I didn't think they would actually be a character as the Prime. You can't take the Prime on his own, but he does make the unit have a character in it. With that, he is also Synapse. So not only do you have a Super Ravvener, you have a Super Synapse Ravvener, meaning these guys are always going to be Strength 6, AP2, 2 damage in melee. The Prime himself gets an extra 3 attacks, so he has 6 attacks hitting on 3s, Strength 6, AP2, 2 damage. Pretty dang good. You do also gain a Venom Bolt, which is an awesome name. I love it. Which is a Super Flamer. It does not impact the melee profile of this model. It just is an addition. It is an Assault Ignores Cover Torrent Flamer, 12-inch range, D6 plus 3 attacks, Strength 6, AP 1 damage. Very fantastic little profile, especially because it doesn't take away from the model's melee. On top of that, the 3 other Ravveners in the unit are just standard Ravveners. They have their same profile, with the exception that these guys in melee, for whatever reason, have gained anti-monster and anti-vehicle 5-up. Now, with Synapse putting them at Strength 6, they're almost always going to be wounding everything on at least 5s, unless it's a Toughness 12 monster or vehicle, which there aren't a ton of in the game, and you really, unless you're desperate, aren't going to want to throw these into that type of unit anyway. Still, sure, we'll take it, whatever. It's nice. They also have the Alpha Invader keyword, which gives them sustained hits, so their melee is just, that much more potent. And they have the Hypersensory Array, which is once per battle, you can either Rapid Ingress or Heroic Intervene for 0 CP, and you can do it if you have already targeted a unit in your army with the stratagem this turn. So you can get a bonus Heroic Intervention or a bonus Rapid Ingress with these guys. Now, that is pretty nasty when it comes to what this unit can do. But there is more even with this. This unit, because it is a character unit, 2 things. Well, first off, slight tangent. Let me know, I haven't checked the rules myself, but can you with precision snipe out the Ravvener Prime? Or can you not? Because it's a character. I don't know how that works. I'll be honest, I haven't looked it up, but it's something interesting. I should also mention the Ravvener Prime has 6 wounds, so he's basically 2 Ravveners in 1. Very, very nice there. Either way, back to what I was saying. There's more that this unit does. Because it is this character unit, it can lead Ravveners. So you can walk around with a 10-man brick of Ravveners, and they can gain, the regular Ravveners will gain the sustained hits, and the hyper-adaptive Ravveners will gain the ability to pop up and down and up and down. So you could be looking at a 290-point pseudo Death Star unit, a very powerful unit, let me be clear. They are putting out an insane amount of attacks, and when we go to our deep dive video, I will put that in. There will be calculations, so stay tuned to that either next week or the following week. I will do all the math, but these things are going to be wicked. Is it worth it? Who knows? I have a feeling in the new detachment, which we'll talk about in a second, and in the Vanguard Onslaught, these guys are going to be just bonkers. Who knows? Really cool units. I think most people are going to want to get their hands on these boxes, especially if you like those playstyles. If you have no interest in the playstyle, then maybe not. But these things are cracked right now as it looks. Maybe not. Maybe I'll get to play them and they won't be. But I think they're pretty dang good. So that is everything for the Ravveners for now. And let's move on to the next Tyranid detachment that we have been given. Now for the new detachment, the final piece that we're going to talk about. Subterranean Assault. What is it? It gives you 2 new special rules. They're fantastic. So the first one is a reroll once. Whole army, reroll once, all day, every day. Tyranids have never really had access to something like that in a long time. So, fantastic. The Burrow Assault, it's not technically what it's called, but I'm calling it Burrow Assault. So each time a Burrower unit, Trigon, Small Ox, Ravveners and the hyper-adaptive Ravveners. Each time they arrive from reserve, you put a 40 millimeter token down near them. I think it has to be within 3 inches of them. Or within 1 inch, more than 3 inches away from enemy units. These little tokens are your tunnels. They are 40 millimeter base. When you set up reinforcements, you can set them up wholly within 9 inches of this tunnel, and they can be 6 inches away from enemy units. They're still allowed to charge, meaning you pop this thing up, you put your little base down, and then you pop in scary melee units to just have 6-inch charges all the time. If an enemy unit comes within 3 inches of one of these tokens, it is removed, which, it is what it is. But again, if the models pop up and down, which they can do, they will keep spawning these tunnel tokens. This is pretty much the new Alpha Strike in 40k, let alone the Tyranids. This will allow you to bring in almost anything, almost anywhere on the board, turn 2. You've got warriors that you want to get in the front line, there you go. You got zoanthropes that you want to not just strategic reserve off the flank, you want to put them in a weird angle where they will get to absolutely obliterate something, you can do it. You want screamer killers barreling out of a tunnel led by a Trigon, there they go. And then even Swarmlord could just walk up the board out of a tunnel right in your opponent's front line. Wild stuff there. And again, on top of all these movement shenanigans, you just get to reroll ones on everything all the time. So fantastic there. There are some great enhancements and strats here. I'll breeze through these quickly. Again, I will do a full deep dive on this, and we'll talk about strategies and everything more. This will be more of a overview and ramble right now. Synaptic strategy, free rapid ingress. Fantastic. And it's even if you already did. So you can rapid ingress 2 things with this. Tremor senses, 20 points. Redeploy 3 units and they can go into strategic reserve. This will allow you to hit the 1,000-point reserve cap and then send even more into reserve if you truly want to alpha strike your opponent with like 1,700 points of 1,300 points of models. Vanguard Intellect, 15 points. A deep strike model. Your unit can arrive turn 1 in the movement phase. So turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. An important little morsel here is the way it is written is a unit can arrive turn 1. Unless they change it, you can give this to a winged prime who has the deep strike keyword, and if that winged prime is attached to a bunch of melee warriors, those melee warriors can now deep strike. And they could deep strike turn 1 if you really wanted to. So very interesting. You can't rapid ingress with this because it is movement phase. But a very interesting little option we have there, seeing now a whole block of warriors that normally slow getting up the board, just boom, here they are. Maybe they'll FAQ that or rewrite that, I don't know. But for now, you can do it. And finally, Trigon Prime, 20 points. The Trigon Prime is an old unit. They killed it in 10th edition, but now what it is, it's a Trigon. It can be a character. It gains Synapse, +1 strength, effectively +2 strength, and +1 weapon skill. So the Trigon Prime, I wish you could take 3 of these, but the Trigon Prime is now going to be hitting you with 12 attacks at strength 11, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, AP 2-3 damage. Oh, it's beautiful. Trigon Primes, I've always loved these. All the way back since 5th edition, they were fantastic to include. It was really sad to see them go. And thank you, GW, for just giving us a taste of the Trigon Prime once more. In probably his best form he's been in since 6th edition. The Trigon Prime has never been better. Stratagems, all some good ones. Not crucial, must spam them all the time strats, but some good ones here. Adaptive optimization, and you do it in the command phase. A Trigon or Moloch gains Synapse. Could help you in a pinch if it takes helps out you out with some battle shock, helps you out with putting a Trigon up to the strength 10 for a bracketing or for a damage difference there. Fine. Replenishing swarms, a unit wholly within 9 inches of a tunnel heals D3 wounds if it's a monster or multi-wound infantry, or if it is a 1-wound model, D3+1 models are brought back. So you can't just revive multi-wound models like in Assimilation Swarm, but it is something that could be nice because that's potentially 4 wounds back on a Trigon. Enfilading Emergence, 1 unit set up in your reinforcement steps. It gains sustained hits 1 and ignores cover until the end of the fight phase. So you could put this on your Trigon. You could put this on a Screamer Killer that popped out of the board. What I'm going to be putting this on a lot of times is a block of Zoanthropes with a Neurotyrant. So now, delivery mechanism, Zoanthropes, which is what Ravveners, Moloch, Trigon, whatever, Zoanthropes with a Neurotyrant pop out, and they're hitting on 2s, reeling 1s, the lances are lance, and they get sustained hits. You're looking at, on average, 7 hits with your lances. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. And ignore cover, so they're going to be taking those on 5 or 6 up saves, unless they have an invone, of course. So very nice there. And of course, you can use it on melee if you really want to. Tunnel Network, very fun one. It will probably be finicky to use, but a fun one. So you take 1 unit that is wholly within 9 inches of one tunnel, and you basically redeploy them to be 9 inches, wholly within 9 inches of another tunnel. They must be 6 inches away from an enemy, but that's pretty cool. You could have 1 Ravvener unit, 1 Trigon, whatever, pop in turn 1, put a tunnel down in your deployment zone, and then in turn 2 or 3, they can basically just use that tunnel to shoot units at your opponent, presuming there is a viable tunnel for them to use. Very cool. Very, very cool. I don't know how effective it'll actually be, but I can imagine some late game maneuvering shenanigans could be pretty fun. You got Swarming Assault, where a 1-tier monster from your unit set up in reserves gives all friendly units within 6 inches reroll charges. It's important to note that the units that are arriving don't have to have arrived that turn, so you could use this on like a Moloch or something that pops in. It doesn't need to be as close to the enemy as possible, but if it is within like 6 inches of 2 or 3 units that are getting ready to charge, bam, they all get reroll charges, and maybe they're all reroll 6 to 9 inch charges, which makes them makes an extremely effective stratagem. Really, really cool. Again, you could pair this with, say, your, I don't know, deep strike, anything that can just pop in out of the tunnel. It's a really good. Not just 1 unit gets reroll charges, everything within 6 inches gets reroll charges. And finally, of course, Retreat Below, which is 1 unit or 2 burrow units that are not with engagement range can be put into reserve. So this is the whole, let's pop back and go, let's see. Let's get away, go back in the tunnels, and pop up again. So I could be seeing this being used on Molochs, of course, or you could use it on your Zoanthropes if you want them to be safe, and then pop them back out again. Very cool. Very, very cool. So some closing thoughts on the detachment. The strats are good, not mind-blowing, but they're very good. Especially it helps out with the changes to the Tyrant. There are no defensive strats here, so this is truly an Alpha Strike. Get in, hurt your opponent, score as many points as possible, do as much damage as possible, because you're probably going to die, and then they'll start moving out. So really good there. I love that the enhancements are not too expensive. 20 points is the most expensive one, and they're all pretty good and have a great use case. The detachment rule, super flexible. We'll talk about this more in the deep dive, but with just the full reroll ones, you could use this detachment in just about any way you want. You want to run a bunch of Tyrannofexes? Great. Reroll ones to hit on Rupture Cannons is fantastic. You want that on Exocrines? Great. They already give it, but now you don't need them. You want to run a full Alpha Strike melee build, which I'm going to be doing. Everything loves reroll ones to hit, and then this mobility is something outside of Vanguard Onslaught Tyranids have not had in this edition. Last edition we had ways to be super mobile. I loved playing Kraken, which was extremely mobile army. Now, it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar to having that kind of Kraken back. Yes, people call it Jormungandr detachment. I don't care. I'm playing it like Kraken. Again, the tunnel systems can be very potent. Your opponent is probably going to be, the better opponents are going to be good at shutting those down, but because it's alpha striking on you, you can still kind of control the engagement with those ones, where you don't have to go all in on turn 2. You can wait till turn 3. up to you. You can do a little bit on turn 1, and then you can do some on turn 2 and 3. Lots of options for you there. So some fun facts before we wrap it up. This detachment was a thing back in 7th edition, where your Trigons would deploy and they would create tunnels. And you could also pair this was back when you could have multiple detachments in one army. So you had the Trigons would pop up, create your tunnels, and then the way I like to play it was within the old Unending Swarm, which was you just had a buttload of Gaunt squads. And the Gaunts, every time a Gaunt squad died, on a 4+, they went back into reserve. So you could imagine throwing, 45 Gaunts at a time at your opponent, keeping them bogged in their deployment zone, and as soon as a unit dies, oh, 4+, back in reserve, here he comes out of my tunnel that's in the front line, and I'm, again, just throwing Gaunts over and over. There's a video of me playing this list, or this old list, from 10 years ago on Mini Wargaming's channel, back when I was just graduating high school, so a while ago. But it's out there. I used it to do some serious damage, if I remember right. Very fun times. Very wild times back in 7th. But it's there. Maybe if I can find it, I'll link it or something. But yeah, I'm glad GW brought this back. Whether their intention was to recreate this old detachment and bring it back, or they just happened to recreate something that's been a thing in the past. So that is that. Overall, my thoughts on this stuff, I'm loving the changes. The Hive Tyrant one is a little wonky. I want to play test the Ravveners before I give them the final seal of these guys are awesome. But hopefully you guys get your hands on some Ravveners if you don't already have them. It's going to be fun, and we will cover all of these things more in depth in the future here. Once I get some more games under my belt, we're going to be playing, I think, 4 games by the next time I do a video, so you guys will see it. And again, stay tuned on Monday, live streaming. I will be playing the new detachment with my list I try out the weekend, maybe some tweaks, against Matt's Scary Death Guard. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully a good game for you guys. But that's all we got. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.